Alright, in this video we're going to see how to use a database inside of a GitHub Codespace. Now there are a number of ways that you could use a database, but the one that I'm going to do is by running it in a Docker container. And this also shows how Docker works inside of GitHub Codespaces. And it operates a lot like it would on the desktop if you were using Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to get a little more room down here. And if I go down to my terminal and I type Docker, we'll see that Docker support is already present. So let's say that I want to use MongoDB as the database. I need to first of all pull that image down. We'll say Docker pull Mongo. And by default it'll use the latest tag and it'll pull down the various components and then extract them. And here's something else to keep in mind is that you're using Microsoft's bandwidth here. You're not using your own, so you get the advantage of their high-speed connections. And now that's already done. So to run this, to create a new container, I'll say Docker run. I'll give it a name. Again, mempyjan23. I need to forward the port that MongoDB runs on from inside of the container to the Codespace itself. So what I'll do is I'll say that I want to expose the port is by default 27017, so I'm going to expose port 27017 in the container to port 27017 on the Codespace or the host. I'm going to run it in the background, and then Mongo latest is the image that I want to use. And it's going to return the ID of an image. And if I do a Docker PS, we'll see that we indeed have a container rather up and running here. All right. Working with the command line, we can do that, but it's easier if we use the Docker extension. So I'll go over to my extensions. I will search for Docker. And here's this one by Microsoft, which I will install. Now, in a later series of videos, perhaps bring up the support for Docker files and other facilities that it gives you. But right now, we're just going to focus on what's over here in the sidebar. And notice that here it has the container that's running and the image that I just pulled down. What else can we do? Well, we want to be able to connect to that database. And there's another extension to use for that. So I'll go back over to my extensions panel. And I'll search for MongoDB. And I'll have to spell it correctly. And this one right here, which is the official MongoDB for VS Code extension by MongoDB themselves. So I'll say install in Codespaces, close this. And now there's this leaf over here in the sidebar. And if I click it, give it a second to catch up. And it'll say that it's not found anything and that how do I want to connect. I'm going to click this advanced connection strings because it's automatically going to have a connection set up here on localhost and port 27017, which is what I want. And then if I connect, okay, that should have connected right away. It's taking too long. Oh, I see what the problem is. So here's my mistake. Notice that I've got this port correct, 27017, but this one I mistyped it and it's 27107. So the correct port is 27017. So if I go back over here, actually what I'm going to have to do first is go over to and remove this container. It's not going to remove the image, just the container. And now all I have to do is fix this. Well, here, 27017. There we go. Okay. Now I've got a new one. And if we go back to the MongoDB, add connection, open the form, localhost 27017 connect. There we go. Okay, that's what and you can see over here now we have the databases that are created in the container. All right. So let's see here. So now what I need to do is I need to install another package into the Codespace, another Python package, and that's going to be pymongo. So say pip install pymongo. And pymongo is the package that is maintained by MongoDB for working with MongoDB databases. All right, so let's go back over to our app.py. And using pymongo is very, very easy. The first thing that you need to do is, of course, import something from the pymongo module. So say from pymongo, import Mongo client. Just like as with other databases, you have to have a client. And now I'm going to go over here and I'll create a new instance of that client. Say client equals Mongo client. And by default, if you just use the default initializer, it will attempt to connect to localhost port 27017. All right, we're going to need a form of some kind, and I'm going to copy and paste. Like I said, this is about the tooling. This is not about Flask or Python. Oh, one other thing that I need to do here is I need to get an instance of the database. The database is just going to be called blog. And I can access that using dot notation. Whoops, client.blog. And notice that blog does not exist. This will actually be created the first time that it is accessed. And then we'll be able to use it down here. Now I've got a new route called blog/new. And here's something new is that this method's keyword argument is saying that this route will accept requests from the get or post method, because of course we're going to have to post a form down here. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll look at the request, which is imported up here, and look at the method and say, is this equal to get? If it is, I'm going to render a template that has the form to post a new blog post in it. Otherwise, I'm going to look inside of request.form, and this is a dictionary-like object that holds the values of the form fields, and the keys are simply the names of the fields. So I'll get everything out, then I'll say db.posts. Post is going to be a collection, as you can see there by the IntelliSense. And again, this will be created automatically on the first access. Use the insert one method, and then, like I said before, in MongoDB, what the data is stored in documents, conceptually JSON objects. JSON objects are very similar to Python dictionaries, so you can simply pass this a Python dictionary and it will convert it to JSON, and then it will store it inside of the post collection. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get the author, the title, and the body. Then when it was created, and I need to import date time up here. Date time, there we go. And then the comments. And the comments are actually going to be a list in Python array in JSON that will be embedded into the document. And each of those will be a document as well. We'll see that when we get to it. All right, now the other thing I need to do is I'm going to copy and paste this template, this blog new template. And go over here, create the file blog new.html. As you can see, it's a very simple form, just author, title, body, and then a submit button. And I believe that's all we're going to need. So I can say cd mempy, and I can say flask run. And this should be everything that I need. Okay, I'll open that up in the browser. The port 5000 has been forwarded. And I'll go to blog/new. There's the form. Douglas, first post. This is the first post. Okay, now it redirects back to the root, which is what it's supposed to do because of this redirect down here. And if you've used Flask before, yes, there are more elegant ways of specifying the URL, but I'm going for MVP here, so I'm just going to hard code the URLs for now. And let's take a look at our MongoDB. Need to refresh it. There's the blog database, there's the post collection, there's the documents, and there is the data that was just inserted. All right, I'm going to pause the video and go ahead and put the rest of the database code in so you don't have to watch me copy and paste, and then we will take a look at it. Alright, so here's the rest of the code. So the first thing is that we need to have a way to access the posts themselves. In the index route here, I'm going to get all of the posts out of the database. So this is the blog.db, this is the post collection, and then this find method, which will look for documents based on this query document here. If you pass it an empty query document, it'll retrieve everything in that collection. Then I can pass that to the template with a keyword argument. And the keyword argument and the variable do not have to be the same. The keyword argument and the value, rather, do not have to be the same name. They don't. It's just convenient in this case. So I had to go through and modify templates HTML, index.html template. And here I'm just setting it up inside of an unordered list using these tags. Reads much like Python. So for each post in the post, I'm going to create a list item. I'm going to create a link. It's going to link to a URL called blog detail, and then to access this particular value inside of the post, then I'm going to use the double curly braces, and there's a unique ID that is an underscore ID that is created by MongoDB for every document. So that's what I want to use to say which blog post we want to look at the details for, and then I'll print out the text of the title, and that's what everybody will see. All right, so let's look at that blog detail route. Now the blog detail needs to have a parameter for the post ID, and putting it in the angle brackets will specify that, and then it will take whatever value is in post ID and pass it to the function, the handler function, as post ID. Again, in here, I'm going to need to either respond to GET or POST requests. I'll first of all look at the method to see if it's GET. If it is, then I'm going to get a single post. So instead of find everything with a particular query document, I'm going to say find one. And here I want to find the one post that matches this post ID. So the query document is going to say, look at the underscore ID field and find the ID that matches, or find the document rather with an ID that matches the post ID. Now the post ID coming in is going to be a string, but internally MongoDB stores it as type object ID, which I have imported up here from the BSON module. BSON is binary JSON, which is the internal storage format for MongoDB. Otherwise, we've posted a form. There's going to be a comment form in the detail template, and it's simply going to have a single field of body. I'm going to create a new document for the comment because those documents are going to be stored in this comments list inside of the document for the post. So now what I want to do is I want to update the document for that post. The query document, again, I simply want to get the post that has an underscore ID field equal to the post ID, again, cast to an object ID. Then what do I want to do? How do I want to update it? I want to do a push update. This is defined by MongoDB. And then a query document for the push. I want to push onto comments, the new comment. And then I'm just going to redirect back to this detail page so we can see the comment. And then, other than that, here's the blog detail page. Up here first I'm going to post the details of the post. Then, any particular comments, just loop over those again. And then down here is the form for posting a new comment. Let's see how this works. Say Flask run. Open it in the browser. And already you can see the post that was created earlier in the video. So if I click on that, it's going to take me to the blog detail. Here are the details. There are no comments yet, but here's the form for leaving a comment. And I can say this, well, if I can type, this is the first comment. And if I hit the comment button, then it redirects back to that same page and we can now see the comments. And if we go over to MongoDB and take a look at this document, see that the comment has been added. The comment document that we just created has been added to the comments array inside of the object. All right, that's enough for this video. In the next video, we're going to take a look and see how we can get a database running on Azure.